The first thing you would lose is the sky. Not your courage, not your strength. The sky. 1 minute, you're standing in a Victorian pit yard before sunrise with coal smoke hanging over the town so thick it seems to have weather of its own. Your boots are in mud. Men are walking past you with bread wrapped in cloth and tin bottles of cold tea. Boys are following them, some so small they look like they should be carrying school books, not lamps. Then someone points you toward the cage. It isn't an elevator, it's a wooden and iron platform hanging from a rope, open enough that your body understands the drop before your mind does. You step in. The signal knocks, the rope tightens, and the whole world falls. For a few seconds, daylight is still above you. Then it becomes a square, then a coin, then it's gone. Water runs down the shaft wall. Your lamp makes a little yellow bubble around your hand, and outside that bubble is darkness your eyes have no useful plan for. This is where the title stops being a question about toughness. Because a Victorian coal mine wasn't just a workplace underground. It was a buried machine made of air currents, doors, ropes, horses, timber, children, gas, water, and judgment. The problem isn't whether you could handle hard labor for one shift. The problem is whether you could learn the rules of this hidden world before the hidden world punished you for not knowing them. The first rule is that the mine is much smaller than you think. In your head, an underground tunnel is probably something a person can stand in. Maybe damp, maybe dark, but still a tunnel. In many 19th century coal seams, that would be a luxury. Some roadways were high enough to walk bent double. Others forced men onto their knees. In thin seams, the working space could feel less like a room and more like a cupboard turned sideways. That changed who could work there. Before the Mines and Collieries Act of 1842, British investigators found women, girls, and very young boys working underground. Some children were trappers. Their job was to sit alone beside a ventilation door and open it when a coal tub came through, then shut it again. The reports described children as young as 5 or 6 doing this. Imagine being 5 years old, underground for 12 hours, in darkness so complete that your main task is listening for wheels. And that little door was not a small detail. It was part of the mine's lungs. A coal mine has to breathe. Fresh air has to come down. Stale air has to leave. But air is lazy. It takes the easiest path unless people force it through the workings with doors, walls, cloth brattices, stoppings, and sometimes a furnace that pulled air through the mine like a giant chimney. If a trapper left a door open, the air could take a shortcut. The coal face, where men were cutting, might suddenly lose its current. That sounds inconvenient until you understand what the mine was breathing out. Coal gives off firedamp, mostly methane. Mix methane with air in the wrong range, roughly 5 to 15%, and a tunnel can become the inside of a cannon. A candle flame, a spark from metal, a damaged lamp, one careless second, and fire can run through the roadways faster than a person can turn around. Then comes the part that sounds almost designed to be cruel. Many miners did not die in the first flash. They died afterward, in afterdamp, the poisoned air left behind by an explosion. It could contain carbon monoxide, which gets into your blood and stops it carrying oxygen, even while you are still breathing. There was also blackdamp, air low in oxygen and heavy with carbon dioxide, waiting in dips, old workings, and poorly ventilated corners. The mine did not have to crush you. Sometimes it only had to change the meaning of air. So the lamp in your hand is not just a lamp. In 1815, Humphrey Davy introduced his safety lamp, and George Stephenson developed a rival design around the same time. The idea was clever. Put the flame behind fine metal gauze. Air could reach the flame, but the flame couldn't easily pass back through the gauze and ignite gas outside. The lamp could also warn you. Firedamp might stretch the flame and give it a pale blue cap. Bad air might make it shrink or die. But that invention had a dark twist. It made some mines safer, and it made some people more willing to enter places they should have treated as too dangerous. The light was weak. The gauze could be damaged or dirty. Miners complained that they couldn't see the coal, the roof, or their own tools well enough. Some still preferred naked candles because a candle was dangerous, but at least it let you see what might kill you next. Now your little flame is a light, a warning instrument, and a temptation to ignore the warning. Your first real task is just getting to the coalface. That sounds simple until the mine begins spending your body. You duck so long your neck starts to burn. Your boots slide on wet clay and broken coal. The air smells of lamp oil, damp timber, sweat, and animals. In many pits, ponies hauled tubs underground. You hear them before you see them. Hooves on rails, chains tightening, a breath in the dark. At the face, the hewer is working the seam by hand. For much of the Victorian period, this is not a machine job. It is a pick, a wedge, a hammer, and a human body folded into whatever space the geology allows. He cuts underneath the coal to weaken it. He reads cracks. He judges where the weight is sitting. He tries to bring down coal without bringing down the roof. This is the danger that gets less attention than explosions because it is less cinematic. Roof falls were ordinary terror. Above you is rock, clay, and coal, measured not in pounds, but in the weight of the earth. Holding it up are timber props, pillars of uncut coal, and the miner's ability to notice small changes before they become final. A skilled miner listened to the roof. A tick, a crack, a sprinkle of dust. A prop starting to complain. To you, all of that is background noise. To him, it is weather. That difference is probably what would get you. Not the famous disaster. Not the single dramatic mistake. The normal work. You would not know where to put your hand. You would not know when a tub was about to move. You would not know which low patch might hold bad air. You would not understand why an older man suddenly stops talking and looks at his lamp. By mid-shift, the survival question has changed. It is no longer, can you endure pain? It is, can you understand a place where every ordinary object has a second meaning? A door is not a door. It is ventilation. A lamp is not a lamp. It is a gas test. A pony is not just an animal. It is power in a place where steam engines cannot easily go. A child sitting alone in darkness is not an extra worker. He is part of the air system. A pillar of coal left behind is not waste. It is holding up the world. Victorian Britain ran on this hidden logic. By 1841, around 216,000 people were employed in mines in Britain. Coal-heated homes, fed factory boilers, powered steam engines, made gas for city lights, and pulled railways across the country. The bright, loud, modern surface was being built by people who spent half their lives underneath it. And sometimes the underground world broke open so violently that people above ground could no longer pretend not to see it. In 1838, at Huskar Colliery near Barnsley, a storm sent floodwater into old workings. 26 children died. That disaster helped push the government toward the investigation that exposed child labor underground and led to the 1842 law banning women, girls, and boys under 10 from working below ground. In 1862, at Hartley Colliery, a massive beam from the pumping engine broke and fell down the mine's single shaft. It blocked the only way out and damaged the ventilation. 204 men and boys were trapped and died, not because they were unskilled, not because they panicked, because the mine had one throat and it closed. In 1857, at Lundhill, an explosion killed 189 people. In 1866, the Oaks Colliery disaster at Barnsley killed 361 miners and rescuers. Each number began as an ordinary morning. Someone packed food, someone expected to come home, someone stepped into the cage because that was the shift. That is the strangest thing about trying to survive one day in a Victorian coal mine. The catastrophe was real, but catastrophe was not the usual shape of danger. Most shifts ended with men coming back up, black-faced, exhausted, coughing, bruised, but alive. Then they washed, slept, and went down again. Survival was possible because miners were not just strong, they were specialists. They carried a map in their bodies, where the air moved, where water gathered, how the roof sounded, which props were trustworthy, which roadways felt wrong, how a lamp behaved when the air changed. From the outside, that knowledge can look like instinct. It wasn't. It was training, memory, fear, and childhood, built one shift at a time. So could you survive? If you were lucky, guided by experienced miners, kept away from the face, and given the easiest possible job, maybe. You might make it through one shift shaken, sore, and filthy. But if you were thrown into the real work as an ordinary Victorian miner, the honest answer is probably no. Not because you're weak. Because the mine was not a test of courage. It was a language. After 10 or 12 hours, if you lasted that long, your knees would ache, your back would lock, your throat would feel lined with grit, and coal dust would be pressed into every crease of your skin. You would climb back into the cage. The signal would knock again. The rope would pull. As you rose, the dark would drop away beneath you. The square of daylight would return. Then the yard. Then the smoke. Then the town. And this is the part that follows you back above ground. A Victorian coal mine was not separate from ordinary life. It was ordinary life, hidden underneath it. The warm kitchen, the factory whistle, the railway carriage, the gas lamp in the street, the kettle boiling over a coal fire, all of it was connected by an invisible rope to someone crouched in a seam, watching a flame and listening to the roof. At the start, losing the sky feels like entering another world. By the end, you realize that world was holding up this one. The miners could read it: the cage, the door, the lamp, the air, the silence before a fall. You would be waiting for the mine to explain itself. And underground, by the time the explanation arrives, it may already be too late.